there's a lot of barriers to getting resources to the people who need them. You often think if you create this stuff, they'll just come and they'll use these resources. But it's really not that simple. There's the diagnosis that's hard to accept. There's being a caregiver that's hard to accept. And then for me, I kind of feel like I'm this like pre-caregiver that's helping my dad, like the uncertainty of when I should butt in as the child, right? Like they're my parents. I, can't treat them like they're my kids because they're my parents.
Did you know that in 2020, there were 53 million caregivers in the United States? And by 2025, this number is expected to grow to 62.5 million. 73% of these caregivers also have a job. They are called working caregivers, and they are invisible because they don't talk about their caregiving challenges. Working Caregivers, the Invisible Employees, is a podcast that will show you how to support working caregivers. Join Selma Archer and Zach Demopoulos on the Working Caregivers, the Invisible Employees podcast as they show you how to support working caregivers.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us on the Working Caregivers, the Invisible Employee podcast. I'm Zach Demopoulos.
And I'm Selma Archer.
How are you doing, Selma Archer?
I'm doing great, Zach Demopoulos.
You look awesome. You look awesome. We gotta talk about something besides the weather now. So give me something good.
Something good. Oh, this past weekend, I rode about 26 miles on my bike.
You are an athlete. My goodness.
I love it.
That's incredible. That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I did it before it got hot. Not talking about the weather, but that was a variable.
and it's probably therapeutic too, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I love that. That's great. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about therapeutic things that we need to do to take care of ourselves in just a little bit. But let's get our guest. So we like to bring to the show a great special guest, Dr. Joan Monin. Hey, Dr. Monin.
Hey, Zach Demopoulos.
Welcome, Dr. Monin. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, my goodness. So great to be here. And so how's it going? Dr. Monin is calling in from Yale University where she works. We asked her about the flag in the background. What's going on with the flag there, Dr. Monin?
Yeah, it's the Ecuador consulate downstairs. So that's the Ecuador flag.
Pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So we've already established that you live near Yale, we assume. So we always like to start off by asking our guests something kind of fun about where you live. You got something fun you want to share with us?
Yeah, well, I live just outside New Haven in Branford, Connecticut. And did you know that the stone that the Statue of Liberty is on is from the quarries of Branford? It's like a pink stone. It's a granite, and it's famous for that building material, and it's actually at the base of the Statue of Liberty.
Wow.
That's actually pretty cool.
Didn't know that.
I tell you,
Yeah.
most guests give us, this, that, but that was really amazing.
That's
That was
great.
interesting.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
historical.
I'm lucky to have kids, where the education is good in Branford about the local history. So, I learn about things like the Charter Oak in Connecticut and the special chair they have at the Capitol building. And I, learn all about our history in our state, in our town.
That's actually pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I was going to say that it came on a boat, right, from Europe, but no, not the base. The base came from your area. Okay, I got you.
Awesome.
All right. Well, there's a little bit of history there for you listeners. Let's jump right into our conversation. Again, thank you for being here with us, Dr. Monin. We really appreciate it. You've done some tremendous research in public health and in the caregiving space, and that's how we found you. And we really are excited that you're here. We're going to talk about some important things. But first of all, do you mind sharing a little bit with us about your caregiver story?
Sure. Yeah. So, I've been doing caregiving research for a long time, since around 2007. I think I started doing research about caregiving, but I think about 2 years ago is when I stumbled upon my own caregiving journey for myself personally. And boy, is it weird to have been an academic researcher about caregiving and then
Mhm.
find yourself, an adult child of a person who is in the beginning, maybe middle-ish stages of dementia right now. So my dad is my mom's caregiver and doing a great job. But it's interesting being the child who is like the biggest expert in dementia caregiving, right? Like academically, and then trying to help your dad and your mom
Mm.
through that journey. It's a very interesting perspective. I feel very blessed to know a lot of things that are resources that are
Mm.
around me. But now I'm understanding that because my parents live about an hour and 20 minutes away drive, that really there's a desert of caregiving resources around them. And so all the stuff I know that's around Southern Connecticut is not really an option for them.
Mm.
Um, because there's a lot of barriers to getting resources to the people who need them. And I'm finding some of the biggest barriers are psychological ones. Like my mom doesn't really believe she has dementia
Right.
Mhm.
and doesn't want any support. And my dad also doesn't believe that he needs any support as a spouse of a wife.
Mm.
Wow.
Like he's not really wanting to accept anything for himself. So I've had to kind of discuss this as like, this is for our family. This is for the three of us. And that's been an interesting journey because you often think like, if you create this stuff, they'll just come and they'll use these resources. But it's
Yeah.
really not that simple. There's the diagnosis that's hard to accept. There's being a caregiver that's hard to accept. And then for me, I kind of feel like I'm this like pre-caregiver that's helping my dad. And it's like the uncertainty of when I should butt in as the child, right? Like they're my parents. I, can't treat them like they're my kids because they're my parents.
Right.
So it's
Right.
an odd stage right now for me.
I can actually relate a little bit as far as when I used to run a home care agency, and I thought, man, I've got all this knowledge, but I had a challenge trying to go home and care for my mom with all this knowledge. In the beginning, I was spewing it all out, and she would get just upset. Like, that's not me. That's for sick people, right?
Mm.
Right. So, how do you deal with that? Because without all that academic knowledge, now you're in a applicable life, right? I mean, how do you is your self-awareness radar up high, or how do you handle that where you have to pull back the reins a little bit, or because your
Mhm.
parents are lucky, of course, fortunate to have a resource like you as well as a daughter, but
Yeah, I'm trying to practice what I preach, what I've been telling
yes,
caregivers this whole time, and
right?
including me too, like start early. Like, just because I kind of don't feel like I'm burned out yet. Like, I am part of the caregiving network at this point. And as I describe it to people, I realize to myself, like, yeah, that's a lot to be holding every day. And so, I am getting connected to a therapist to help me think about things, because I have a supportive husband, and I have supportive friends, and I can talk to them. But sometimes you just kind of need someone that will, it's their job to listen, and then they can help you kind of think about, oh, should I be doing this at this time? Or, how should I be thinking about this whatever crisis at the moment. It might not be like a full blown crisis like some of the ones
Yeah.
we talk about, but ones where you kind of feel like, oh, wow, my dad's not listening to me. I'm not sure what my next move is here to be like the responsible person. Or how do I honor my mom's dignity but there's these different constraints around her cognition. Like, how should I actually be implementing the things that I preach, which is
Mhm.
to maximize the dignity of every person who's going through cognitive change, not thinking about them differently, but it's a real sometimes it can be really hard to like put that in practice as like the daughter of a mother, and you are seeing changes in how you relate to one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do I kind of like recontextualize that to myself as still love my mom and, like to talk about certain things, but also there's like another thing happening right now.
Right, right. Just one quick follow-up question. Um, and by the way, I loved that you shared about the therapist. I think that is a fantastic option for many of us who we feel alone, and sometimes you just can't talk to people who don't get it or what have you. Did you have a particular specialist, caregiver, therapist, or just a therapist who's really helping?
Well, I
Yeah.
actually learned a lot about what you all are doing through the process of accessing a therapist through my employer.
Mm.
So, I finally kind of learned about some of the benefits that I have because if you're not really seeking out a therapist, you don't really like look into what the benefits your employer has. So then I like tried to figure it out, and it wasn't extremely easy to do that. And I learned about what the difference was between like that temporary benefit that you can get and then also like the long-term one that I qualified for. But I had to figure that out. And then I had to
Mm.
like understand that I needed to be like authorized by that plan to go to an authorized specialist,
Mm,
and that caregiving was not on the list of
mm,
things. Like, it could have been like marital therapy, like
right.
depression, all these different things, and you had to be kind of diagnosed with that to keep on going. But then talking to, those insurance people, they're like, well, actually, there is kind of a code that people use for caregiving, but it wasn't like primary on the list. And I just wonder how many people see that as kind of a block along the way to actually accessing that
Oh,
therapy.
thank you
So,
for
kind of
sharing.
something related to what you guys are working on is like
Yes.
make it more prominent that, caregiving situations are a thing to get therapy for, because I'm sure
Yeah.
there's way more than me that's doing
It
this.
could be something as simply as changing the language. You don't have
Yeah.
to change
Yeah.
the benefit.
Yeah. Cause I almost felt
Yeah.
like, oh, I have to have a psychological like disorder for me to take advantage of this benefit. But I'm literally trying to do what I preach, which is get in touch with a therapist before you have a psychological
Yeah.
disorder.
So, Dr. Monin, it's clear that your expertise and your experience in this area of caregiving and research has certainly influenced the way that you interact in your journey with your parents and your mom particularly. I was just wondering, on the flip side of that, has your personal experience with your family influence the work that you do? Like, what do you bring back from your experiences with your caregiving journey to the job?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's more that I see the blocks to actually engaging with caregiving resources. I think I mentioned that before, but just as like a working professional person, I just want to get through my day and do all the stuff I have to do. And right now, I'm not quite faced with my mom's needs right in my face every day. So sometimes I'm just like not thinking about that part of my life, but it's still happening over there, right? And we say to everybody, like, just be prepared. But,
Yeah.
you know, as a busy woman with teenagers, and I like to do stuff for fun, and I don't want to be thinking about what's going to happen with my parents. Sometimes I do push it aside, and I think that's typical. Like I don't think people are thinking about caregiving all the time. Even though that's
Yeah.
like what my research is, and I think like, oh yeah, people are thinking about caregiving all the time. That's just one part of their life, and it like shows up every once in a while, and it can be scary sometimes. And then
Mm-hmm.
you kind of just like back off from it for a while until it comes and goes in your face again. Or you visit your parents and you see that there's been a change. And it's not apparent to you because you're not living with them. And so that's like maybe a first phase before we decide on any living arrangement type of situations that may have to come down the road. So at what point are you like taking it seriously, those conversations with someone like Zach Demopoulos, home care specialist, to say
Yeah.
like, oh, today is the day where I don't think my mom can do all the things. But I don't think it works like that in real life.
It's a good point. So,
Yeah.
do you think that your caregiving journey, or has your caregiving journey changed or influenced at all your relationship with your kids?
It's been super interesting to watch their reactions to things and how they behave. And I have to say, I kind of really admire my children for how they do act with their grandparents in ways that sometimes I'm not able to do because I'm too emotionally in it. And I think they're more just like, that's Yaya and Gramps, you know? And they're able to kind of like roll with the situation. And they've been around like older adults their whole life, like very close to their great grandparents when they were little and things like that. So they have a lot of exposure to older adults and like aren't scared. But there's a lot of people who don't have a lot of exposure to just older adults in general or have stereotypes, you know. And I think one thing that's been nice about my family is I come from a Greek family where the older adults are really like the revered people in the family.
Mhm.
Which is, you know, there's lots of cultures like that, but I do think it's like protective for kids and how they behave towards older adults when that's just part of like how your family functions.
Right. Okay.
Wow. No, you're proud of your children for sure. So, sandwich generation caregivers, caregivers of family members with dementia or other cognitive impairment issues, those caregivers tend to suffer a little bit more when it comes to physical, mental, emotional, even financial. You've done some work with self-regulation intervention with caregivers of family members with dementia, and I believe that's a fancy word for self-care, maybe. But self-care, nobody likes the word self-care, and you tell somebody you need to take care of yourself, it's probably the worst thing you could tell somebody. So we put up these walls and we have these defensive mechanisms that we've got this. We got this. And you've done some work with this. So please, our listeners right now, I hope you're on the edge of your seats because this applies to all of us.
Yeah. I mean, it's a conversation that just comes up. So self-regulation is maybe a little bit different than self-care, but it's the idea of kind of being able to dampen your emotions or, you know, just control your feelings really. And it takes exercise to be able to do that. You know, just like physical exercise where we're you know, building our strength up so that we can um, cycle for 25 miles, right? Like that takes like time to be able to do that. But
Yeah.
we tend not to do like a lot of exercise to be able to like control our emotions or our
That's true.
responses to things. You know, like if we get upset, an example would be like your partner who has dementia is asking you the same question over and over again, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh my god, like why are you saying that, but we don't have to be like that. And actually, you feel kind of bad after you did something like that because you were
Yeah.
like short with your person. And it wasn't really their fault, but it was like, if you get to the root cause of it, it's probably because you're like scared. You're like, that person doesn't know what's going on and I'm losing that person, or that's not my mom anymore, or like
Hmm.
they're losing their identity to me. But really, like, you can build up skills to stop yourself in those moments if you continually see them happening, right? So, we thought about what tools are out there that people use for other psychological conditions, or for attaining goals or getting things done. And how could we apply it to caregivers of people living with dementia to react in those type of situations, to like calm themselves and then also behave in a way that's helpful to the other person?
Mm.
And one of these famous psychologists in social psychology, Gabrielle Odigan from New York University, has this awesome website. It's called whoopmylife.org. And anyone can check it out. You can use it for anything, and it's available in all these different languages. And this strategy has been used for all kinds of like health conditions, for kids with ADHD to do their homework, for people to lose weight, for people to eat more vegetables. And I thought, like, what if we tried this out with spouses or care partners of people living with dementia to practice this exercise for like 2 weeks to see if it would help with situations like I just said. Like, the person is asking me the same question over and over. I lose my patience, I yell at them, I feel bad. And so the beauty of um this WOOP strategy, the wish outcome obstacle plan, is that you can apply it to anything you want. But there's some special parts to this process that make it very effective. And so it's been studied for over 20 years with like large effect sizes and research to show that it actually works and can change behaviors. But the first part of it is to come up with a wish or like a goal. So it'd be like, I wish that I wouldn't respond harshly to my partner when they ask me the same question over and over again. And then you envision the outcome, you imagine the outcome. And this is kind of like a little bit of like a mindful thing. So you're kind of closing your eyes and saying, like, if I did respond in this good way, like, we would just keep on going with how we were interacting, making dinner or whatever in that moment, and it would feel good. Here's where like the really important part comes: imagining what the obstacle is.
Mm.
Now, the thing about the obstacle is that it has to be something you control. So it has to be internal. It can't be like, the obstacle is my partner's dementia, because you can't do anything about that.
Right.
So you have to try to dig deep inside yourself and say, like, what is the obstacle? And what I've heard from a lot of people, I did some studies on this, is that often they identify that they do feel anxious in that moment or fearful about the future.
Mm.
And so once you kind of acknowledge like that obstacle, you kind of can name it, right? And then the next part, and this is also really important, is the, if that obstacle happens, I will. And this is called implementation intentions. It's a social psychology thing, that where you say, if I feel anxious, and you're noticing that anxiety, I will. And then you can put in whatever coping strategy you want, because people have different things that work best for them. But they might say, like, I will go into the other room and take a deep breath, and I will come back, and or a lot of people will plan what they're going to say, so they don't have to like really think of it in the moment. They'll say, like, here's the answer that I want to say calmly, and then just say it. And then over and over again, if you continue to do that, it means you kind of like start a new pattern, because you're disrupting that pattern from happening. So that's kind of one interpersonal strategy that a lot of people used WOOP for. And I did a randomized control trial to teach people to do this versus a control group. And I found that, doing this, learning this strategy, practicing it for 2 weeks, and then we follow up 3 months later, were you still doing it and everything, that it actually decreased caregivers' stress and depressive symptoms and increased their positive emotions. And it also did that for their partner, because we asked the person living with dementia too. The effects weren't as strong on the partner, but you could see the spillover effects to the other person, right? Because the more you're regulating your emotions, the better the other person's going to feel, because you're not yelling at them. They remember the feelings, even if they didn't remember that encounter. I find that a lot with, people who are living with dementia that I know, is that, the feelings last a lot longer than whatever the conflict was that you had. So it's been really cool to see that strategy helping people. Like, I've had some feedback from people that said, I was just in my kitchen. It felt like the whole world was crashing in on me. I hadn't used WOOP for a long time, but then it just came into my mind.
Oh,
and
wow.
I did it. And I was able to like stop crying and like, sitting on the floor in my kitchen, and I was able to get out of it. And I was like, if that just helped one person, like, it's worth it to me. It didn't even have to be effective with a statistically significant, P sign for me, because, if you could just help one person like that means the world to me. So
I appreciate that explanation. I was under the impression it was around self-care, but it does feed into self-care, but it's the tools. It's really, and what do you call these tools?
It's called WOOP, WOOP. Wish.
Tell us again what that stands for.
Wish, Outcome, Obstacle, Plan. And you can go on whoopmylife.org and you can try it out yourself. They even have an app for your phone, where if you wanted to just do a WOOP, it's for free. I have it on my phone, and it just guides you, like, what's your wish? What's your what's your obstacle? What's your plan? So it makes it really easy. But the self-care aspect, Zach, is that, like, you could use this if you're feeling like you don't have time to like go for a walk as a caregiver. And so people will use it for like health behaviors like that. So they'll be like, okay, I want to go for a walk in the morning just around my neighborhood. And then like the outcome is that I will be healthier, or I will have time to think. And then maybe the obstacle is like, I don't feel comfortable like leaving my person alone, or I feel guilty because we used to always walk together and now I'm doing it by myself. And then they would make a if then plan, like, if I'm feeling guilty, like remind myself that this is about dementia, and that it's not about like leaving the person out. Or if I feel like I don't want to leave them alone, maybe set it up so that someone can, like the neighbor or something like that, can just come over for that time ahead of time.
That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And that's really like, actually, you're talking about caring for yourself. You're talking about, reducing the stress and getting the health, that you need by doing this exercise. So it's great. I'll have to try this out myself.
Yeah, I definitely tested it out before I did any research on it. and it got me on the elliptical once a week when I
Really?
when I have little kids. I was just like, I just don't have enough time because I had to take care of them and then I have to do my work, and I really haven't been doing any aerobic exercise. And I was like, yeah, I'm running around the place all the time. It's not like I'm sedentary, but I like don't have that time to get my heart pumping.
Yeah.
So I actually whooped it and made it so that every Sunday after breakfast, so I said, after breakfast, then I will go on the elliptical for 45 minutes. And so then that's become like a pattern for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
There it is. There it is. Wow. I love that. That is great. Thank you for sharing. Gosh, yeah. I hope somebody on the elliptical right now is listening to us and thinking about how to use this method in other ways in their lives. Absolutely.
Can we talk about the Borrow My Glasses?
Yes, I'd love to. Borrow My Glasses is an education company in Connecticut, owned by Donna Fettis and Lauren Lewis. They have this incredible team of people who go and do education on lots of different things, including dementia caregiving, being an older adult living alone. They do trainings for companies so that people who are on the phone lines know how to respond to older adults more, because sometimes you have to use some special skills to be able to talk with people of different cognitive function or hearing impairment, things that happen as you age. And so this company actually came to me after they read my first randomized controlled trial paper showing WOOP was helpful, and said, hey, do you want to collaborate to try to get this out, to the masses and have it be paired with dementia caregiving education? So you would have dementia education in a group setting, and then you would teach WOOP, and they would be able to share their WOOPs with each other and encourage each other's WOOPs, right? So we did that work. It went very well. And so now we're looking for opportunities to kind of take it to the next step, to say hey, it was feasible. You can put it out in this way virtually on the internet, on an education website. But I just encourage anyone to just look at borrowmyglasses.com, because they have a lot of options to help caregivers just in general. But that's the one that I kind of helped with in terms of my research influencing some of their practices. But yeah, we're really looking forward to continuing that work to try to get to more people, potentially through businesses and organizations that would want to offer that, to employees.
As part of the benefit package or
something?
something?
I think that would be a really good way to do it, because that's actually where we've gotten the most interest, is from companies that found out about this and they're like, oh, we'd love to give this to our employees.
That's a great idea.
That's fantastic. I know you've done some work on spousal relationships and caregiving, and that's very, very interesting to me. So not long ago, back in April, we did a newsletter that was focused on that relationship and how it really is very different from any other type of care relationship. And also, one of the things that I got out of the research was that the expectation is much higher when it's a spousal relationship, because society is expecting you to go 100% farther than you would in a different type of relationship. It's like they go back to the wedding vows of till death do we part, and you're going to be there to do it all. Well, you can't do it all if you're working, there are kids to, take care of, and you have a spouse that needs you as well. So can you just talk a little bit about some of those challenges?
Wow, there's so much to talk about here. It's where to start? And it's interesting because there's legislation in Connecticut where you can be paid to be a caregiver for an older adult, but it only applies to people who are not spouses.
Oh.
So, I have a friend who is trying to get it. So to convince like the Connecticut government to say like, we should also include spouses. I think at the end of the day, it's like all about money and not wanting to have it be spread out to too many people, because that would be a lot more people taking that benefit. But I mean, that's something I'd like to learn more about with like policy and like how we change people's minds about some of these things, because I think everybody has their own personal story. So I'm sure if some of those people who are in power, as it starts to happen to them, maybe they'll
Yeah.
understand like how it really doesn't make it easier, or just because in our society we think that like being married means like you just have to do that for free.
Doesn't make sense.
What I know, like what are we need to like make some really good points. I think Selma, you could probably do that for us. People with lived experience being a spouse of a partner, and especially like adding on the working too. Although
Yeah.
like that would be a conversation to have too, is like, is it necessary to be working, and be a spouse to get that benefit? But I think your question really brings up that like society part of caregiving and
Yeah.
what we expect from people, and maybe even like gender differences and things, because I know Zach was talking about like, oh, it's really hard to be a sandwich caregiver. And I think usually people are thinking about the mom, like the daughter mom, because they have to do so much. But if we think about fathers or sons also getting involved more too, like you, Zach, who have been doing that, that
Hmm.
could change things a little bit too, the way we're viewing the sandwich caregiving, right? Because right now women are under so many roles. Like, okay, we're working, we're parenting, and we're most likely to be taking care of the parents. Like, that's the
Hmm.
biggest gender difference, is older adult caregiving, with women being the caregivers. Whereas parenting for young children has evened out a bit more. So
Mhm.
I think that's kind of an interesting, thing to think about with society and policies and how we care for older adults. And yeah, and we just see like differences in demographic shifts and families. But moving away from policy to more the close relationships work too, Selma, is that
Hmm.
I've done most of my research has actually been on spouses and how they navigate changes together in their relationships. Because if you're in a close relationship and you're two older adults, it's likely that both of you will need care from one another at some time or another. And so a lot of my work was trying to understand like, how do you care for each other through different stages? Like, maybe you got like a hip replacement and then your partner had to
Right.
take care of you for that time, but then that was over, and then the other person got pneumonia and then you had to take care of that person. And like, how do spouses kind of do well like compared to other spouses? And what I found was that the more both people are willing to like be mutually supportive to each other, like when the need is there, the other person can kind of be like, yeah, I'll be the caregiver right now, like, or and then the other time the other person needs it, they're like, oh, I can be the caregiver.
Mm.
And they're working together like as a team to care for each other as they need care. But then when it comes to something like dementia or, Parkinson's or things like that, where that role kind of shifts, it can be extra hard, I think, for spouses, because that power dynamic kind of
Hmm.
shifts. And for a lot of people, like if you're in a marriage you really like, your identity is often shared. And so that kind of overlap and like this we shared identity can make it really hard for both spouses, but, thinking about from the perspective of the spousal caregiver, is that they're kind of losing part of themselves in a way. And sometimes they're losing their friend network because people don't want to show up when
Right.
one of the people has dementia. And how do you keep those people still coming around, engaging with you both? And people who are really close to one another sometimes, when they think the other person is in pain or suffering, they actually like really feel like they are in pain and suffering.
Mm.
So it's that spousal closeness that sometimes can be a little bit harder than potentially if you're a child and a parent, because as a child and a parent you still love each other, but you didn't pick to like get married to that
Right.
person, from day one. So
Yeah.
I hope that explains a little bit. I could do more, like 20 years of research, but
Yeah, it's very helpful because it sticks in my mind some of the data around that. And one of the pieces that I clearly actually remember is the high divorce rate of
Mm.
spousal caregiving. It's astronomical, but I can see why.
yeah, I ended up doing a study on that because I did notice that in some of the early caregiving groups for the Alzheimer's Association around here, they were seeing that a whole bunch of them were getting divorced.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I was like, let me look at this in like a large representative sample in the United States. And we have a study that shows that, yeah, it's like the early stages where people get divorced. If they've made it all the way to the end stages, then they're less likely to get divorced. But that makes sense, right? Because you committed, you're like, okay, that person, but it's really that part in the beginning. And I think a lot of it has to do with like not being diagnosed right away too. So there's like a lot of people who have like frontotemporal dementia, where it's the personality changes that are first.
Mm.
So you don't know the person has dementia, you just think they're being like a horrible person. And then that's why you get a divorce. And then after that is when they get diagnosed with FTD.
Oh
So
my.
it's not across the board like that type of dementia. Like, I don't want to characterize anything, but like certain types of ways that the brain is affected by dementia can cause like more of those personality or erratic behaviors, rather than like the first signs being like forgetting things, which I think people see more as a warning sign, but the other ones
Mhm.
are really hard to detect.
Yeah. Wow. Good information.
Your research is magnificent. It's needed. It's important, and it applies to not just society or in the home, but it does apply also to work and employers. And as you mentioned with the WOOP technique, that's great. We could talk to you for a couple more hours, but we've got to go. Before we let you go, though, so what are you working on now? Can you share? What's your latest research?
So yeah, I mean, I'm actually like really excited that I've kind of shifted. I mean, I'm still really interested in the perspective of care partners, but I think I've focused so much on the perspective of care partners, kind of to the detriment of really listening to people living with dementia. And so a lot of my work right now is kind of centering on the experiences of people as they're starting to live with dementia, and society is telling them like, that's the end of your life, you will not be able to live well, and saying like, hey, there are options, you are still alive and you can live well with dementia, but as a society and as a community, we need to be thinking about ways to support that. We support kids with developmental disabilities so that they can live a good life.
Right.
Why don't we do that when someone is diagnosed with dementia? We pretty much just say like,
Mhm.
oh, your life is over, go on a vacation, come back, while you still can, and then we'll see like how far it progressed, and, take this medication that doesn't work, and then we'll see what happens. There's a lot of things we could be doing in that time right there. There are behavioral things. There are supportive therapies. We can intervene a lot earlier. So that's what I'm trying to work on right now, is spreading that message, because I don't think people hear that message very much.
No,
I'm
not
always
at all.
surprised, like, when after like an audience hears me and people living with dementia who come with me to talk about this, and they're like, never heard of that before. And I'm just like, okay, well, I need to be going around telling more people about this then. So,
I mean, some of the old literature painted that picture where this is it, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the new findings and research and statistics are showing that, we could do something about this. And there is not just not medicine, which unfortunately hasn't really made big progresses, but there are methods, techniques. And so, because unfortunately with caregivers of people with dementia, it's a long road. It's a big journey.
Yeah. And when you decrease the suffering in the person living with dementia, you decrease the suffering in all the people around them. Imagine the amount of good that you could do just by helping that one person.
Wow. Dr. Monin, thank you so much for being here with us. How can people find more or learn more about you or connect with you if they want to?
Well, I have, my Yale website, Joan Monin. You can just type it in. Send me an email. I think that's pretty much how you find me.
Well, we'll add the links in our show notes. Again, thank you so much for being here. You're just a great guest and
wealth of information.
Thank you. I'm excited to work with both of you in the future.
I got a feeling we're going to see you again soon. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to catch new episodes of Working Caregivers, the Invisible Employees podcast, every other Tuesday. Please also visit our website, invisibleemployeeadvocates.com, to subscribe to our newsletter, purchase our book, and learn more about how we can help you strengthen your workplace to become more supportive of working caregivers.